Welcome to this explainer. Right now, we're looking at a critical, systemic shift that is completely reshaping higher education institutions worldwide. For years, we've seen this huge explosion in impact reporting, right? Documents that are carefully designed to showcase an institution's commitment to society and the environment. But the ground beneath those reports is shifting rapidly. We are definitively entering the era of evidence governance. Basically, accreditation bodies no longer just believe your SDG report because it looks good or uses confident language. They're demanding actual proof. Let's dive into exactly why this shift is happening and how your institution has to adapt.
Here is our roadmap for today. We're going to cover 4 distinct areas. First, the illusion of impact. Second, convergence on evidence. Third, the AI accountability factor. And finally, practical evidence governance.
Section 1. The illusion of impact and moving past decorative reporting. Every single year, thousands of institutions submit these incredibly lengthy reports. They're filled with SDG icons, outreach photographs, and really confident language about their commitment to society. And historically, most of them would pass review. But if you ask them directly, very few of these institutions could actually prove what changed because of their work. There's this vast gap between what's claimed on paper and what can be proven in reality, and reviewers are definitely noticing. To put it plainly, the decoration was never the problem. The absolute absence of a trail behind it always was. Look, for a long time, the accreditation industry was fairly tolerant. Good intentions were accepted as a starting point. But let me be absolutely clear. That tolerance has definitively ended. You just can't rely on formatting and good intentions anymore to pass a rigorous accreditation review. We're making a hard shift from a paradigm of decorative reporting straight to real proof. Accreditors aren't asking institutions to just declare their good intentions anymore. They want to see measured change. They want to know exactly who was affected, how you measured that change quantitatively or qualitatively, who specifically owns that data, and most importantly, what the institution did differently the next time around based on those findings. It's a fundamental shift in the burden of proof. Moving to Section 2. Convergence on evidence and a unified demand for data. This move away from decorative reporting isn't just some isolated trend from one rogue agency. It's a systemic global shift. Major accreditation bodies all over the world have independently arrived at the exact same evidence-based discipline. Take AACSB's 2020 standards as a prime example. Societal impact doesn't just sit in a silo for them anymore. It is embedded right inside a dedicated standard that runs across curriculum, research, and engagement. AACSB's own guidance is highly direct about this reality. They fully acknowledge that many business schools have been doing really meaningful sustainability work for years, but far fewer have actually been coordinating it, and even fewer have been measuring the outcome. Like the quote says, activity was never the shortfall, measurement was. And it's brilliant how this exact discipline scales globally across different frameworks. BGA takes it even further. They expect a working set of impact metrics linked to the SDGs, backed by multiple years of consistent data. BGA expects you to explain exactly why a metric moved and what you're going to do about it. That is a mandatory evidence loop, not just a passive report. We also see AMBA judging programs on demonstrable graduate achievement. EFMD's EQUIS treats sustainability as a continuous thread running through governance and faculty, not just a chapter you write once and forget. And the MBO's framework tracks outcome attainment cycle after cycle through continuous improvement. So the really crucial point here is that none of these bodies copied each other. They converged on this specific discipline because it is quite literally the only scalable way to prove institutional claims. To survive this new era, your institution has to adopt this scaling discipline. Every single claim has to be measurable. There has to be a clear evidence trail behind it. There must be a named individual who owns that data. And there has to be a documented improvement that came from analyzing it. Without those 4 pillars, your claims are merely decorative. That brings us to Section 3, the AI accountability factor, and why tech exposes weak data. Now, this is perhaps the most misunderstood aspect of the current higher ed landscape, and it serves as a massive catalyst for the changes we're talking about today. Here is exactly where a lot of institutions are getting the next few years completely wrong. It is so incredibly tempting to view artificial intelligence as a shortcut, a tool to help you draft your self-assessment reports faster, or just instantly generate a societal impact narrative on demand. That is the exact wrong way to think about it. AI does not lower the burden of proof. It actually operates as an exposure tool. It significantly raises the cost of not having a rigorous evidence trail, and it is going to punish weak evidence habits far faster than any human reviewer ever could. Think about an AI-enabled quality system. It's a framework completely reliant on clean data, defined ownership, validated sources, and crystal clear governance trails. An AI system is literally only as good as the information feeding it. So if your institution's evidence is scattered across a dozen different departments, defined totally inconsistently in random spreadsheets, and never really checked by anyone other than the person who wrote it, AI is not going to magically fix that problem. It will simply expose the chaotic state of your data, and it's going to do so without the professional diplomacy a human peer reviewer might offer. We can actually ground this reality by looking at NAAC's recent reform direction. Following a governance review, NAAC is explicitly moving toward a data-driven, technology-enabled model. They're looking at cross-checking institutional claims against national platforms, and they've stated an intention to use AI-supported verification as part of their pipeline. But we do need to be precise and cautious here. This is a described direction that is currently in a phased rollout. It is not yet a fully completed, universally operating system. That said, the trajectory is undeniable. The systems evaluating you are becoming drastically more sophisticated.
Which leads us directly to this pretty sobering takeaway. AI will not replace accreditation judgment. It will raise the cost of weak evidence habits. The fundamentals of clean data and clear ownership remain the ultimate baseline for any kind of technological integration. If you try to use AI to gloss over a lack of real, measured impact, the technology itself will actually be the very thing that highlights your institution's lack of an evidence trail. Finally, Section 4, Practical Evidence Governance, and shifting from writing to proving.
We've outlined the problem and the pressures of this new era. Now we have to talk about the practical resolution. What does a mature institution actually have to do differently today to prepare for this rigorous new standard of accountability? Well, the answer isn't to form yet another SDG committee. And it's certainly not to write a longer, more heavily designed report. The shift that actually matters is in your posture. You have to transition from merely writing about impact to being able to prove it on demand, at any moment, and in whatever format an accreditor asks for. That requires fundamentally changing how your data is structured, gathered, and governed at the institutional level.
There are 3 really critical, practical steps to achieve this. Step 1. Name a specific data owner for every recurring claim before the next accreditation cycle even begins. Don't wait for a frantic scramble at the end. Step 2. Choose a smaller number of highly defensible SDG-linked metrics that you can genuinely back up with years of consistent data rather than some massive set of metrics you can only illustrate with stock photos. And Step 3. Treat validation as a routine habit. You need someone other than the author to formally check the numbers on a schedule. Implementing those 3 steps creates what we call the bridge of evidence governance. When you decide in advance who owns a data point, exactly how it's defined, and how it is validated, you build this vital bridge. It successfully connects modern accreditation standards straight to your daily operations. It prepares your institution for the incoming wave of AI governance. It builds genuine institutional quality intelligence. And finally, it completely replaces performative decoration with irrefutable facts.
I want to leave you with a provocative question to really consider regarding your own institution's readiness. Are you producing reports that simply look impressive, or are you actively building a defensible evidence trail? Because SDG icons are just labels. True impact only begins when change is measured, validated, and improved. The institutions that build this discipline are going to find themselves ready for AACSB, BGA, EQUIS, AMBA, and NAAC. The ones that don't will just find themselves holding beautiful reports that prove absolutely nothing. Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to review your institution's data governance protocols today.